Good morning, everybody. Welcome to my channel. My name is Cynthia, for those that don't know me, and I live in Mesa, Arizona, and I like to make videos about projects and things we do in our backyard, like gardening and animals and rain collecting projects. I've been gardening since 2008, and I would want to say I've gotten pretty good at it. And since maybe 7 years ago, I've started selling seedlings. I host 2 sales a year, one for the spring summer, and one for the fall winter. So this past year, sorry about the noise, I live in a very busy street. This sale that just happened in this summer 2025 went great. Great. I loved meeting all of you people who are here from the Mesa, Arizona, Chandler, Gilbert. We had a lot of people come over. I usually host the sale in my front yard, but this time there were so many plants that I had to just leave them in the backyard, and I would bring people back and introduce myself, and they got to see my backyard and play with our animals, and I gave out some of my harvest. I just love interacting with the community. And something that was really interesting is to see how many of the people that purchased plants this year were new gardeners, and they had a lot of questions, and of course I'd be glad to help, and I answer some of the questions on how to grow these plants. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this short video. It's kind of impromptu. I didn't have all the tools that I needed, but I'm going to make just a short video on how to transplant your seedlings into a bigger pot or your raised bed. I grow in pots, in containers. So what I'm going to do, I have all the plants that I need in my containers already, but I went ahead and bought a plant to show you how to transplant your seedling into a bigger container. Like I said, a lot of these products that I use, the soil and the amendments I don't have with me because they're already in the containers. So I don't have the soil, but I'm gonna put pictures up here of the types of soil and the places you can get it, and fertilizers and such, so that you can go shopping for that if that's what you need. So without further ado, let's plant this pepper plant. Also, as far as depth on how deep you should get your pods, you should start with a minimum of 12 inches. Okay, the roots have to have a minimum of 12 inches. For example, the bigger the plant, the more the space the roots need. The bok choy and the lettuce have about 12 inches. The lettuce has more. Actually, this one has less, and this one has more. But the bigger the space they have, the bigger the plant is going to grow. It's going to be happier. It's going to produce bigger leaves. It's going to have space. I can't really tell you the inches. I can't remember. I've had these tubs forever. But look how big this tub is. Well, those large ones that you find at the big box store. I have 1 tomato and 1 pepper. And this plant is continuing to grow. But a 5-gallon bucket would be sufficient for 1 plant. Okay, and those are cheap. Like I said, I grow cheap containers. I don't have raised beds. I've done the raised beds, and it didn't work out in this property. And so a dear friend of mine gave me these giant tubs, but I have plenty of space for all my plants because I don't want them to be struggling to find space. So you always start with 12 inches of space per pot, and the bigger your tomatoes and squash, and I think last year on this planter, last summer, I had 2 zucchinis, and that was it. I didn't add any more. That was enough. But the bigger the pot, the bigger the plant, the bigger and deeper your pot, but minimum 12 inches. Okay, so what I have here, this big old tub, I have my cilantro plant that I'm letting go to seed so I can collect seeds for the herbs next winter. And I also have baby bok choy that's going to seed, and I'm gonna let it go to seed so I can collect the seeds, okay? But what I'm gonna do is I had a more baby bok choy on this side, and I just plucked it out so I can show you, okay? So what you see here is a layer of mulch. We need mulch on top of the soil once we plant, because the mulch is going to retain the water in the soil, especially with our heat. Our soil can get very dry, and actually it should be a thicker layer, but the season's over, so the mulch has really gone down, composted with the soil and stuff, so it breaks down. These are wood chips, and I got this mulch at the Arizona Worm Farm. You can use straw also. They sell that at like your local Tractor Supply. I think I've seen it. I haven't seen it like Home Depot or Lowe's, but it can be dry leaves. It just has to be a good layer of mulch. Look at this line. That's how tall the mulch was, and now it's like really low. But the mulch is going to help with bugs getting into your soil. It's going to keep moisture in your soil so you're not watering constantly. It's just very beneficial, and I would say it's a must, because your soil is going to dry out and turn into like like rocky and dry and hard, and that's really tough for the plant. So I'm going to take all this layer of mulch, and I'm going to put it in this bucket where I have more mulch. Mulch is good. It's precious. Don't get rid of it. You can reuse it season after season. So in order for me to transplant, I need to expose the soil, and we're gonna remove all this mulch and put it aside. And after we plant our pepper plant, we're going to put the soil back on top of the plant. I would suggest maybe like 3 to 4 inches of mulch. The more the better. Okay, you can never go bad with lots of mulch. Okay, so this is the soil, and if it's your brand new plant, brand new soil, this is the soil I recommend. Okay, so there's different ways of gardening. There's the organic way, and like you want to spend a lot of money, that's fine, on soil that's organic and good compost, and you should always have compost. I always say compost is one of the best things you can do for the success of your plants. And then there's the cheaper way, which how I started, and I recommend, whether it's raised bed or pots, and if you don't have a lot of knowledge on the compost, on the ratios of soil and types of soil, this is the soil that I recommend for your pots, for your vegetable plants. It is the Kellogg's brand, OMRI certified, and it's got compost, it's got bat guano, it's got worm castings, it's got everything you need. You're gonna use that soil, and you don't need to add anything else to this mixture. Now, if you want, you can, and if you already have a product that you want to add, go ahead. Read the label on the bag so you can see what the soil is composed of. I personally have never added anything to this mix. I do have my own vermicompost, so I do add my own worm castings to it, even though it already has some. But because I have a worm bin and I have worm castings, I added to it. But if you are brand new and you don't know what you're doing, and you still need to do research, to start off, this is the best thing I recommend. Now, if you have the time and you want to create your own mix with peat moss, if you're going to have a big garden, a long bed, and you need a lot of soil, you can make your own raised bed mix or potting mix for your vegetables, and that would be comprised of peat moss. It'll be comprised of perlite, and if you want to add vermiculite, you can add that. Okay, and I'll put the ratios here of what part, I honestly, when I did my own mix, I didn't put vermiculite. I put, because it's kind of hard to find and it's pricey, but I did the perlite and the peat moss, and that worked, and then in compost. Okay, So if you can't find vermiculite, don't worry about it. As long as you have perlite, peat moss, and compost, and mix those three together, and that's the perfect mix. Okay, and then so what I have here by the way, I get my compost and this is not sponsored by them at all, and I get my compost from the Arizona Worm Farm. Okay, and let me show you. It comes don't worry about that. That's just more mulch that I have. But this is a little bit left that I have that I use for my seedlings. And it comes with a lot of chips in it. But this is, and it's dried out already, you know. It's lighter in color, but when you receive it, when you get it, you pick it up, it's a lot darker. It's just been sitting out in the elements, in the air, so it dried up. But it's darker as you get in. You see that? So what I do is I get the compost, and you see all these little pieces of wood. I kind of like to sift the compost, and I run it through a fine sifter, and this is what's left. All the pieces are taken out. Some do go through, and I have no problem, but you get a much, I don't know if I can show it in the video, but it's a lot more finer product. And this is what I add. It's also dried up, like I said. Look, it's deeper black down here, and it's much more finer. And the perlite, when you add the perlite, it's going to create pockets of air that the roots can breathe through, because you don't want compacted compost and soil. So even if some of these do go through into your mix, it's okay, because it'll break up the compactness, I guess, if that's a word, of the soil. That is what the vermiculite is. That is what the perlite is for, to break how compact the soil is, and it'll give some space for the roots to move, and it'll create a little bit of air pockets. Okay, so I would mix peat moss with this and with perlite. Okay, and that is what's in here. That mixture that I just said. Now, my soil is depleted because of the season, so I have to put more, worm castings, and, it's actually really full of compost, so it's not too bad. Let me put my gloves on. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I got my plant, and I'm going to create a hole in the same diameter of this pot. Okay, and I'm going to go deep 1 more inch than what the pot is. So if this is like a 4-inch pot, I'm going to make a hole that's deep 5 inches. Okay, so I've created a hole. Something that I'm gonna do that you don't have to, but if you have them, that'd be good to add. Like I said, it's the worm castings. Okay, you see those little white dots? That's the perlite. Okay, and that's what breaks up the compacting of the soil. Okay, so like I said, I have my own vermicompost system, and I have a ton of worms, and this is worm castings that I've collected, that I harvested actually a couple of days ago. And it's organic matter. This gives the plant micronutrients that are not in the regular soil, and that's really gonna boost the immune system of your plant. It's gonna help it thrive. So that's why I put I put a little piece of lettuce, because the microbes in there, do you see them moving? Those are called springtails, and they help decompose organic matter, and they eat the vegetables and everything along with the worms. So those are beneficial. You want those, okay? Those are good. You want those little buggies. Okay, so as far as fertilizer, when the plant is this small, you don't need fertilizer yet. Well, you do. You need nitrogen-rich fertilizer. And the nitrogen, we need three components on a fertilizer, which is nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus or phosphate. Phosphorus, potassium, phosphorus, and nitrogen. Yeah. And so the phosphorus and potassium are going to help with the root development and with fruit and flowers. But the nitrogen is going to help with the green leaves, the color of the leaves, and the growth of the leaves. You don't want to give it potassium and phosphorus just yet. The compost is good enough. If you get the rich compost that I'm telling you about, you can. That'll be enough for the plant. You don't want to over fertilize, because it'll be too much for the plant. And I'm gonna tell you what nitrogen I use. And the reason why you don't want to push the plant to create flowers and tomatoes or whatever you're going to grow in it, or whatever's going to grow, is because the plant needs to save its energy to grow tall first and produce the leaves. And then after it gets a good height, you know, you can start giving it in the potassium and the potassium and the phosphorus and all that. So for now, as a brand new plant, if I have my compost and my, you know, perlite and my raised bed mix, which by the way you can buy already at the worm. You can also, if you don't buy that bag that I told you at the store, and you want to buy at the Arizona Worm Farm, they also have a raised bed mix already that has the perlite and the vermiculite and the compost and the worm castings. It's a little bit more expensive, but if you want the organic, you know, nothing, you know, if you just want to buy it there, you can buy it there. But I don't, because I think it's cheaper at Home Depot. But okay, so I did the 5 inches because it's a 4-inch pot, and we're gonna put it in there. I'm gonna sprinkle some of the worm castings. Good stuff there. Lots of eggs also, I see. Worm eggs. Okay. And then I'm gonna mix it just a little bit with the soil down there. And that's going to give the plant a little boost. Okay, here's my plant. I'm going to take this out, and I'm going to tilt it over and shake it a little bit, and the plant should come out on its own. And I'm going to just ruffle gently the roots. So the roots can know that now they're not on a tight container and they can spread out. Okay, and I'm going to put it in. And the reason why I did an inch more depth is because we want to get the soil level up to, like, I should have done this one. We want to get the soil level up to this part right here. I'm going to tear these leaves because the plant doesn't need to put too much fertilizer, and all these leaves are trying to come out. So there's the base. We want to go a little bit higher, maybe an inch. So that is why I do that, because we want to cover, otherwise the plant's going to be unstable and wobbly. And so we can tear these lower leaves off. We don't need them. The plant doesn't need them. It's got plenty of leaves up here. And we're going to cover up the plant with our soil. Mix. And press down gently. Okay, you know what? Okay. Now the plant is planted and it's secure and it will grow tall. We might have to actually remove this cilantro plant here because it's really blocking the morning sun. It won't block the evening sun, but let's see how it acts. Yeah, you need to make sure that your plant gets that nice morning sun that's not damaging, rather than the afternoon and evening sun, which is a little harder on them. But now that we planted our plant, we're not going to worry about fertilizer, like I told you, at least like plant food and all that they sell. We're just going to give it a little bit of nitrogen, which is a fertilizer, I guess. I'm wrong. We're going to water it now. The soil's pretty dry. After we plant our plant, we're going to give it a good drink. Okay. Going to make sure it penetrates. The perlite is also going to help the water penetrate into the soil, because peat moss, if you're using peat moss, is hydrophobic, which it doesn't really allow water to seep through. So, but believe me, it is a good growing medium. So that's why we use the perlite. Oh, there's too much pressure on this hose. Okay, now let that sink in. that water soak up. Okay. And what happens if we don't use mulch? It looks nice and wet right now, but by the end of the day, like the surface will be crusted dry. You know what I'm saying? And by tomorrow, like, I mean, deep down it'll still be water, but a lot of like insects can get in, gnats and other insects can, you know, lay their eggs, and then they hatch and they eat your plant. So you don't want that. Now that your soil's wet and nice, you gave it a nice drink, you're gonna put your mulch back on. Okay, mulch, 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 and I'm gonna put a good thick layer of it. And like I said, if it could be wood chips, some landscaping companies are trying to get rid of all the material that they get. The bushes, the palm trees, everything. They run it through a wood chipper, and they get wood chips out of it, and they trash it. But you can call them, and sometimes they'd be happy to give it to you for free. Now you're gonna put mulch around the whole plant, but not around the base of the plant, because you don't want to suffocate it either. And so you're gonna leave about 1.5 inches of, at least that's what I do, you know. I'll leave a little bit of space there. It can breathe. And once the plant is established, you can put the mulch all the way to the I would say maybe in a couple of days you can put the mulch like that. And people do it differently. Some people just put the mulch all the way up to the base of the plant on day one. That's just my practice that I've always done. I give it a little bit of air. Once I know that, you know, the plant is it's okay, then I can shove the mulch all the way in. Now let me tell you something. Sometimes there'll be something called transplant shock that happens to the plants. Your plant was nice and perky on the little container, and you come home, you do this transplant, and within a few hours, or like, I don't know, within an hour, you'll see that your plant, it's all droopy and it's looking like it's gonna die, and it's wilted, and you're like, oh no, what happened? That's called transplant shock. And this is some of the pictures that I can show you that kind of look like what I'm telling you, that is transplant shock, and it's totally normal. It's just a shock that the plant is going through, and as long as you keep shade on the plant, like right now. So don't transplant during the hot hours. Either do it early in the morning or do it in the evening when there's no more sun or heat. Okay, the least stress that you can give this little plant when when it's transplanted, the better. So right now it's, you know, dappled shade. It's nice weather. It's kind of windy, so the plant will be okay. But if you do it in the middle of the sun and the heat and everything, it'll be tougher on the plant. But transplant shock is totally normal. It'll last about a day, and then you'll come tomorrow. Tomorrow your plant will be nice and perky and standing up just like it was when you got it on your little container. So don't freak out. That's normal. And not all plants go through that. Like some of my plants don't go through transplant shock, but it's just something that can happen. So I'm letting you know. So, okay, let's put some more mulch. Okay, just wanted to pause and tell you that. But we're gonna add a ton of mulch. Don't go shy on your mulch. Thick layer. It also gives bedding for the beneficial bacteria to live in. And this mulch will break down, it will compost itself, and it will go down into the soil, and it will serve as fertilizer, as more mulch, as more compost. Okay, so that's a thick layer right there. Okay, now let's talk about fertilizers. Okay, so let's talk fertilizers. When the plant is that small, like I said, you want to focus on the leaves, and that is going to be taken care by the nitrogen. Like I said, let me bring. Okay, this is one of the fertilizers I use. It's one of many, and it's got the basic 3 components of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. That's those numbers right here. That's the ratios, I think. So I'm not gonna worry about this right now, and obviously this is what I usually use this for my tomatoes and peppers. We're not gonna worry about that. We're gonna worry about what I'm using here is a 511 fish fertilizer, and that's the focus on this fertilizer is nitrogen. Now, I'm not saying that if you want to use an all-purpose fertilizer from the get-go, I'm not saying it's bad. What you're going to have to do, if you want to put your fertilizer from the get-go, when you put your little plant, this is how you're going to put it on. So let's say this is your plant, your big plant with your little tiny seedling in there. When you're filling your bucket, we're going to do what's called the lasagna method for fertilizing. So you put up to here with soil, and then you sprinkle at that point your granular fertilizer. This fertilizer is going to break down with time. It's not going to feed the plant right away. It takes weeks for this fertilizer to start working. So you put up to like about 5 inches of soil, you sprinkle a good chunk of fertilizer, you mix it in, you put another 5 inches of soil, you sprinkle fertilizer, and then you put another 5 inches of soil. At that point, you're about here, okay? At this point, you want to stop putting that fertilizer, and you just put soil, and from here to up, you can mix in nitrogen, slow release fertilizer. This is the nitrogen. This is a liquid form of this, and this is going to feed the plant right away, instantly, as soon as the plant drinks it with the water, or it's going to eat the fertilizer within time. Like, it's going to take weeks for this to break down and feed, which is fine. But if I want to feed the plants right away, I'm going to give it liquid form. Now, like I said, from here and on, you want to give nitrogen. From here and on, you want to give all-purpose fertilizer, okay? Because by the time the roots of your little plant go down to the all-purpose fertilizer, your plant will already be big, and it'll be ready for all that potassium and phosphorus that's going to help it grow the flowers. But in this time that the plant is still growing, little tiny roots, it wants to feed on that nitrogen, which is going to help it get to that point, which is this or this. Okay, nitrogen. We worry about nitrogen here. We worry about phosphorus, potassium here. And you can still give it nitrogen at this point, because when the plant is tall and big, you also want to keep feeding the leaves, okay? But for the meantime, we worry about nitrogen, and here phosphorus, potassium, nitrogen. All-purpose fertilizer, okay? So, like I said, or you can just not feed it any fertilizer and just rich compost and give it the drink of fertilizer every 10 days, okay? So, which is what I did, what I always do. And how do you give the plant, when it's time to get, if you don't put fertilizer on your soil right away, and it's been, a month, or it's been weeks and weeks, and your plant is huge now, and it's time to give it all-purpose fertilizer, how are we going to give it? It's called side dressing. We're going to side dress, and I'll do it with a bigger plant so you can see. So, okay, what we're going to do is you're going to remove the mulch around the area of the base of the plant, like this. And you're exposing the soil. I haven't watered this in like almost a week. Not a week. Okay, so I expose, and it doesn't have to be right up to the base. It can, but some people don't like to do that, so they fertilize away from the base. I've always fertilized both next to the base of the plant and far away. But for the sake of this video, I'm just going to do it here. So I expose the soil. I take some out, just a little bit, just like, well, actually no, you don't have to, but I just rough up the soil, grab some fertilizer and sprinkle it, and then work it in. This is called side dressing with fertilizer, okay? So you're gonna do that around the plant, kind of away from the plant and close to the plant. Don't put too much, okay? And then tap it down, and then we put the mulch back in on top. We cover it, and then we water it, okay? This fertilizer is going to take a couple of weeks for the plant to absorb. Now, this is slow release fertilizer. Anything that's granular is slow release fertilizer. But your plant is big now, and it's ready to produce fruit, so you can give it that. It actually already started producing fruit. But when it's that small, when it's small like that, compared to that, we don't need to worry about, you know, immediately feeding it, you know, fertilizer that's going to make it produce flowers. We want to worry about nitrogen. So if you see that your flower is deficient, your leaves are starting to turn yellow, kind of like this. It's supposed to be green. They're starting to turn yellow. It needs nitrogen. Okay, so you're gonna come and you're gonna give it this. This is diluted into water. It doesn't go straight in. Okay, so we're gonna do that right now to feed our brand new plant that we just planted. Okay, so what I have here is a watering can. It's a very small one since I'm only trying to feed one plant. It has probably about a quart of water, and we're gonna shake this real well because it's kind of pasty. We shake it well. Now follow the instructions on the bottle, but I usually per gallon I'll put like a tablespoon of it, and since this is a very small amount, we're gonna put just a little bit. Just a little drip right there. That was maybe half a teaspoon. And then you're gonna need some to mix it with. I got my stick here. Just gonna mix it. And now we're gonna pour it on the plant. Okay, I got some left over. And like I said, you can buy these organic or fertilizers anywhere. Really, at your big box store, at Walmart, online, at feed stores have them. But so there's a bone meal. And then, which is good in phosphorus. It does have nitrogen and phosphorus and calcium. We have the nitrogen here, which helps, you know, with the leaves. And we have the potassium. I don't have a bag of potassium, but that I use, or potash is called, that I use. But I actually buy that one online, and this is the one I buy. Like I said, granular is slow release, takes weeks to break down and feed your plant. Liquid feeds right away. And you can find the all-purpose fertilizers in liquid form as well. I just haven't used that. I usually use granular because by the time my plant needs to get a hold of this, you know, it's already broken down. I don't have to, unless it's an emergency, you know, I'll buy liquid fertilizer, but I haven't done that in a long time. Usually compost works really well feeding the plants, and it's filled with all these components. But fertilizing is just a little extra bonus. You don't have to go heavy on the fertilizer because you can't over fertilize your plants and burn them. So that's pretty much all I wanted to show you. I'm sorry that my vlogs about teaching you something, they're very all over the place. I'm not very structured with my teaching videos, I guess, or showing you how to do something videos. So I talk a lot, so I apologize about that. So yeah, that's what I wanted to show you, how to transplant your plants that you just bought, how to make them thrive, and what to put in the soil and what kind of soil. So I hope this was beneficial for you in any kind, way, or form. So thank you for sticking around, and we'll see you next time. Bye.